Kyle,
Right.
you have a lot of people, like participants who could be bumped up to panelists.
Yeah, I've promoted all of them to panelists.
Oh, okay.
Some just might not want to be, so they just
Okay.
stay there.
Okay.
Um, thank you, Ray, though. Um, thank you everybody for coming. This is our December Old Colony Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting. It's our last one of 2023. Um, I hope everyone's having a good December. Everyone has their Christmas shopping done, hopefully, getting tight on time. Um, if everybody could just put their affiliation in their next to their name, that'd be helpful. And so just going through the agenda for today, our first guest speaker is Rob May. He's the Director of Planning and Economic Development for the City of Brockton, and he'll be discussing the recent awarded RAISE grant that the City of Brockton received. Next will be my colleague Andrew Vidal, our GIS manager. He'll be discussing the MARPA trail mapping effort, and then we'll talk about some bike and ped projects in the Old Colony region, and then discussion on bicycle and pedestrian issues, and then go over just the next few dates for the upcoming meetings for 2024. And so, yeah, Rob, you can, I'll stop sharing my screen and then you can share yours.
Hopefully everybody can see that.
Yep.
That is a snowstorm in the background. I chose that as my virtual background, so there we are. So US DOT RAISE grant, excuse me. It's a miracle is the subtitle of this presentation. I call it It's a Miracle because this was our third application try. And I really don't think we would have gotten it except the fact that I cornered the US DOT Undersecretary of Policy at a conference and wouldn't let her out of the room until I gave her all my grant information. So there's something to be said for strong arming people. So our RAISE grant is about converting downtown from two one-way pairs to, or one, is it one two-way pairs? One two-way, one play? Anyway, two one-way streets to a full two-way street process. If you've been in downtown Brockton, you know that Warren Avenue is one-way south in downtown, and Main Street is one-way north in downtown. And then Belmont between the two is one-way east. And in between all of those streets, there's a whole series of other little one-way streets that just kind of make life difficult for folks. As a matter of fact, we've been looking at converting this back to two-way traffic since probably 5 days after it opened as a one-way street. The idea was if we convert Main Street to one-way and make it easier for people to get downtown, they're more likely to shop here than go out to the mall. That didn't work. They regretted it almost instantly. And of course, converting from one-way to two-way is not as simple as just repainting the lines in the center of the street. As one of our city councilors had asked, why don't you just go out and paint the lines? It's like, yeah, but all the traffic signals are focused the other direction, so nobody's going to stop. So it is a large project. There's 22 signalized intersections, 20 road segments, and over 5.2 miles of local roads. So it covers all of downtown from Spring Street on the north all the way down to and south of the Salisbury Brook, and then from Warren Avenue on the west to Commercial Street on the east. So it's quite a bit of territory. And converting from one-way to two-way is going to be extremely expensive. And obviously, we don't have that kind of money lying around. It's probably $132 million in total. The tip doesn't have that kind of money in it. We would suck up the tip for 6 or 7 years in a row. And I can't see the other communities in the OCPC network agreeing to that. At least I wouldn't agree to that. So we're going to have to figure out how to phase this in over time. And that's making it even more tricky because you can't just phase half a road. So what we're talking about doing is potentially eliminating some of the surface parking or on-street parking to allow for wider sidewalks and to increase and to create a protected bike lane on Main Street. And we would do two-way traffic on Warren Avenue and probably just one bike lane there because it's a much smaller right of way. And we're also talking about making improvements to Legion Parkway, which is a major east-west through downtown, and has a large island in the middle of the street that's kind of unprogrammed at the moment. But we think that we might be able to squeeze in an extra set of bike lanes down the center and not have to interfere with traffic coming in and out. I should have said it's almost an $8 million grant. And at the end of the process, that's going to get us to approximately 25% design of all the roadway and utility improvements and 100% design on a fiber optic network for downtown. If you've been downtown, you know that all our utilities are underground and you simply can't run a fiber line between telephone poles. And so all of that's buried. And so we need handholds and plan for future growth and then figuring out how to light the system. That's coming up shortly, but it'll be a major undertaking. So this is kind of an idea of Main Street looking north. We would have wider sidewalks, 14 to 15 feet wide. We're talking about protected bike lane at the same grade as the sidewalk, so that it creates a larger surface, but adds for more protection than just the little flags or plastic bollards that you see up in other communities. And then we would have 2 lanes of traffic. That would require removing parking on the Main Street. So we are trying to figure out how to add more parking on adjacent roads. You can see in this diagram, you'll see this purple lane here. That's currently no parking, but we're proposing adding more parking onto those side streets to make up for the loss of parking on Main Street. So as I said, we're looking at this planning process where we would expand the streets to the sidewalks to include both the pedestrian through zone, bicycle facilities, street buffers and furnishing zones, new trees and sidewalks, and sidewalk amenities. We spoke about I spoke about the protected bike lane at grade. This is an example from Cambridge, I believe. It's what we would like to imitate here downtown. We also have been looking at a lot of the NACTO guidelines, and so we would like to add more bike amenities, including left turn boxes at intersections. We would like to also include more pedestrian amenities. So here we have a cantilevered bus shelter that I found in London. No, the city did not pay for the trip. But the nice thing about it, being cantilevered, it doesn't take up any sidewalk, really. So you don't lose, our current sidewalks are very narrow. and this would allow us to maintain sidewalk width, but be able to provide extra amenities for riders. We're also exploring doing a ped leading crossing process signal. I don't know. You guys are better at transportation nomenclature, but ped leading would be that when Main Street is north, has a green light, the north and south peds would be activated at the same time. So you wouldn't have to wait to the end of the cycle to get a cross signal. And then ped leading is that it'll give you 2 or 3 seconds to get out into the middle of the intersection before the light turns green, so that you're much more visible to drivers. And we're talking about getting rid of the what they're now calling beg buttons, but we want to work pedestrian crossing into the regular signal system. So pedestrians are counted at the same time, or have the same kind of priorities that vehicular traffic has. You shouldn't have to request access to the street. It should automatically come up at you. I'm rambling. And then we want to expand our fiber optic network downtown, and that not only will connect all of our traffic signals to each other and all the cameras in those traffic signals to a new transportation or traffic facility in the new public safety building, but would also allow for a lit fiber network for downtown businesses or residents to be able to tap into. And we'll have to put that out to figure out who's going to manage that system. We'll put that out on an RFP coming up. But that's kind of all I really had planned to discuss at this venture. We have obviously been awarded the grant. We have had several conversations with Federal Highway Administration, who has guided us to work with MassDOT, and they will actually become the grant recipient, and the city of Brockton will be the co-recipient through a pass-through agreement. MassDOT will help us with all of the contracting and reporting requirements, and will also be in a review process to make sure that everything that we're doing meets all of the federal design requirements and procurement requirements. And so that will take about 6 months to negotiate an agreement, at which time we'll be able to go out. Hopefully I'll be able to go out before that with a request for proposal to find a design firm. We want somebody who is drinking the NACDO Kool-Aid, as it were. We're very, pedestrian bike safety is very important in this process, as opposed to the AASHTO. We're going to design to the 85th percentile, and safety comes third on a list of 5 of priorities. Sorry, that's a swing at AASHTO. And then there'll be a lot more public participation in this process. It's been over 5 years since we developed the plan with the public, and there's a lot of people who've probably forgotten about it. So there will be more public participation, and look forward to working with everybody on the planning process. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Ray.
Yeah, I guess I have a more of a comment to make than a question. I really like, everything that I saw, but one of the things that we did a couple of CARTA studies downtown. We did the Main Street CARTA study. We also did the Route 123.
Yep.
We did the major routes, and a big problem is that there's a lot of truck traffic through the downtown, and going there's no real east-west route for trucks, And one of the problems they have is their back wheels go over the curbs. Like, for example, Legion Parkway taking a left to Warren Ave is a big problem. And that in combination with people on bikes is not a good, that's a recipe for disaster. But I just wanted to make that comment so that when the design is done, they take that into serious consideration.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but I
That's one of the reasons why we wanted to have the, oh, there's my hands, bike lanes at the same level as the sidewalk and provide an extra buffer between the bike lane and the curb so that there'd be an extra built-in safety measure.
Yeah, and you can actually walk downtown and see the broken sidewalks where the backs of the wheels have gone up onto the sidewalk and cracked either the granite curbing or the concrete. One of the corners of Legion Parkway and Warren Avenue, Belmont Street at Crescent Street. There's a lot of the corners. You can see
Oh, yeah.
you can see the evidence of that happening. So I think that's an important issue that they
We
need.
are blessed with having 3 state highways all converge here
Yeah.
on a road system that was designed for horses. So
Yeah. But I mean, it looks great to, and I think that's a great idea to have that, to bring the bicycles up.
thanks.
Yeah, to the curb level.
Mr. O'Brien, how are you, sir?
Oh, wonderful. Shane O'Brien from the Brockton Enterprise. I'm going to ask some hard-hitting questions.
And by the way, Shane was on the planning team at the very beginning of this whole process. So.
Yeah, they all know that. They're all there too. So you talking about two-way Main Street, but are there any other streets that you're going to maintain being one-way? I know back in the day we had some issues in terms of right-of-way width and street width for places like Frederick Douglass, West Elm, and I think Church Street. So are some of those going to remain one way just based on the size of the roadways? And if so, are those roadways going to incorporate like sharrows and stuff like that?
West Elm will probably be one of those streets that gets turned into 2-way traffic, just to give people another way of getting through downtown. Green Street, Franklin, Church, L Street, those will all probably still remain one way. And as we build out a bike network, School Street, I'm sorry, Frederick Douglass will all remain one way. It's just too difficult to convert everything to 2-way. But not only do we want more, protected bike lanes, but we do need more sharrows or other bike amenities on those other one-way streets. And so we've got to figure out how to handle that through this process.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you, Rob. That was awesome. It looks like Charlie has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle, and great job, Team Brockton, on getting the RAISE grant. One of the things I put in the chat was a link to the Healy Driscoll Administration Federal Funds and Infrastructure Office. So this office was formed to help communities apply for and leverage the historic investments by the bipartisan infrastructure law. So I encourage everybody to check that out. And there's a lot of capacity and resources, and credit Rob for really pursuing the RAISE grant and working with MassDOT to get a match on some of these other grants as well, and pursuing the SMART grant. And we were just wondering how the SMART grant that the city got is going to be incorporated into the RAISE. I think they're all kind of interrelated and will work together going forward.
Yes, the SMART grant, we're doing some improvements on Warren Avenue now, as we have to convert that rather quickly to 2-way traffic because of the new public safety building there. Oddly enough, fire trucks cannot go around the block. Who knew? So we do need to have Warren Avenue to 2-way before the fire department works in there. So DPW is currently working on the raise grant, and they're buying some equipment out of this. Obviously, we have to have those two planned to the same level of specification. That's being done by CDM Smith. And so we're working with them to make sure that there are elements from our application, or elements from our raise application into the design aspect of SMART.
Great.
Yeah, again, thank you for being here. I know your schedules was tight today, but
My
I
God, it's
appreciate it.
awful. And this is right before Christmas. Who the hell is scheduling meetings, Mayor? Oh, this is recorded. Never mind. Cut that out. All right. Thank you very much, guys. I'm sorry, but I do have to run.
Thank you very much.
Happy holidays, all.
You too. All right, so we will move on to our next guest speaker, Andrew Vidal, our GIS manager. He'll be talking about the MARPA trail mapping effort across the state.
Thank you, Kyle. So a few years ago, as some of you may know, the RPAs began discussing the development of a trail database encompassing the whole state. Trail data before that point hadn't been collected or stored in any sort of uniform fashion. So there was an effort among the RPAs, with MAPC taking the lead, along with Franklin Regional Council of Governments, to build a statewide data set and come up with a standard that we all could use to submit our trails. So as a group, we had met over the course of 2022, and we established an agreed upon list of common attributes that we'd like to see in a statewide trail database. Standard was developed to simplify data submission, quality assurance, and eventual publishing of the data for public consumption. Speaking for OCPC, we were starting with a base of existing trails that we had entered into GIS kind of haphazardly over time as we saw as the need would strike. You know, we weren't doing any planned edits to a unified trail database, but we did have some. So before this process started, we'd already completed a few local town-owned parks, Wildlands Trust properties, Mass Audubon Society properties, DCR parks, and our handful of rail trails that we have. But now with this new project, we had reached out to our communities for their local knowledge of trails. 10 of our towns replied with additional areas that we began to incorporate into the data set. And currently our mapped trails stand at 154 miles, and there's still some more to map that haven't been done yet. Part of the mapping is also attributing. We have data that we can add to the data set, not just the location of the trail, but attributes about ownership, access, like ADA accessibility and things like that, surface conditions, and that's what the new standard allows us to do. So recently, a phase 2 of this statewide trails database has been announced. In fact, MARPA is holding a meeting immediately after this one to discuss the specific tasks of the next phase. And the plan is, as I've seen, is to finalize the data standard and work with MAPC on a data submission and editing workflow. There are plans to publish the data set publicly via MassGIS, although there's still unresolved questions about how that will be hosted. And currently the phase 2 is sets aside a budget of $8,000 for each RPA with a $2,000 match. So that's the current status of the project right now. And we'll I'm sure at the next BPAC meeting we'll have some more progress on it, because it's slated to begin in January and run through June of next year.
Thank you, Andrew. Does anybody have any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to bike and ped projects in the Old Colony region, and this will be my colleague Sean Bailey will be talking about that. I'll share my screen again. There we go.
Very good. Thank you, Kyle. For anybody who may not know me, my name is Sean Bailey. I'm a senior transportation planner here with the Old Colony Planning Council, and I'm here to talk about two future projects in the OCPZ region that will address bike and or pedestrian accommodations. The first project is project number 612525 in the town of Abington. Intersection improvements at Randolph Street and Richard A. Fitz Drive, Route 139 at Chestnut Street and Old Randolph Street. This project is currently listed in federal fiscal year 27 of the FFY 24 to 28 Old Colony TIP. Work on this project consists of geometric improvements to address deficiencies. A traffic signal and or roundabout will be evaluated. Complete streets elements will be installed as feasible within the constraints of the location. And the other project is project number 611976 in the town of East Bridgewater. Intersection improvements at Highland Street and North Bedford Street, Route 18. This project proposes to improve the existing signalized intersection by constructing either a roundabout or upgrading the signal equipment and tightening the curb radii and modifying the intersection geometry to reduce speeds and promote safety. The feasibility of constructing multi-use pathways along each leg of the intersection will be explored to accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians. And I don't see Barbara LaChance on the meeting, but perhaps Charlene Senior was sent in her place to provide any additional updates.
Hello there. You basically covered the information that I have. I can add for Abington that it is less than 25%. Less than 25% design is completed. The project is currently under the intersection control evaluation review process. And as far as East Bridgewater, that project is essentially at 0% design completion. And the only other information I can give you is that particular one is coming in with an estimated cost of 3.5 million. I don't have cost information for the Abington one, but everything that you outlined, everything you described is what I have as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Cheryl. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Sean and Cheryl. Andrew, did you see Charlie's question? How can communities assist with the trail mapping effort in the chat?
At this point, how the communities can, we had reached out to the communities back over the summer and early fall, and we did get a good response from some of the communities. So we may be reaching out again at some point in the new process. A lot of the phase 2 is trying to produce a product for MAPC to have, which would mean taking what we do have, attributing it, packaging it, and sending it up to MAPC in the standard that they require. So right now, I'm not sure that there's necessarily much for the towns to do, but we will be in communication if there is.
Yeah, I think it might be an opportunity as you're developing a draft to share that back out with the communities for them to QA, QC it and provide any additional information, or so before it gets, shipped up to Boston, there's a chance for a community review and potential revisions. Instead of doing it kind of like afterwards and saying, well, let's add this in later.
Yeah, we'll keep the committee apprised of changes in our towns.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. So this is when I open it up to everyone if they have any bike and ped issues or anything else they'd like to discuss regarding bike and ped. Shane?
Hey, so if there was a moving together conference in March, May, one of those. I met well, I knew from prior work in Brockton, John Gray. He's the one of the transportation planners over at Serpide. So he reached out in terms of what we were looking to do. He was talking about Taunton River Trail, South Coast Bikeway, as well as the Mass Trail Priorities Network map. So I just kind of wanted to put it out on OCPC's radar, and I guess our own radar, is with this kind of group, if we should be looking at linking into some of those trails or reaching out to Serpide, being very selfish. Ideally, we would like some, we're working on some form-based code in Bridgewater, as well as some work with our downtown with our vision to reality plan. So we're hoping to kind of coordinate with you guys, as well as look at what Serpide's done or what future plans they have for bicycle networks and trail networks, and to see if we can kind of all link together to see if we can kind of work together in terms of future goals for connections to some of the things that they're doing down in the South Coast. So just wanted to forward that along. Talking to one person from Serpide, they seem like they're open to talking, and I'm sure you guys have had conversations. But I just thought it was an interesting conversation, talking to another regional planning agency, seeing what they're doing, especially seeing all the work, all the darn bicycle trail and bike lanes that they're doing down in Raynham off of King Philip. It makes me real mad that they kind of stop right to where we are. So we are looking at grant opportunities to obviously connect those, and we do have a couple of bike lanes in town, and I know that OCPC did a pedestrian connectivity and a bike connectivity for all of the cities and towns in the OCPC region.
Jane, I think Charlie's biting at the bit, because I know that
Go for it, Charlie. I
because we are
relinquish my time to you.
we are working with Serpide, but Charlie, go ahead, and then Nick Quinto has a.
I had my poker face on too, right? So, Jane, that's a great. I'm glad you brought that up. OCPC actually had a coordination meeting with Serpide a couple of months ago with John Gray and Jackie Jones, and spot on. One of the things we were talking about is identifying interregional connections, and then ultimately this would wind up in the MARPA trail mapping to make sure that not only on like the southern border of OCPC, but also to the north with MAPC and other regional planning partners, that we have interregional trail and bike connections. So, thanks for bringing that up. And, that's definitely one of the things, we've been working on with Serpide. So, but we're really inspired by your efforts in Bridgewater about pursuing additional grant opportunities, because there's a lot of opportunity and money out there, whether it's complete streets or shared streets. So nice to see you working on that stuff.
We're trying.
I think Nick Quinto has his hand up, Kyle.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I just
Nick, you
asked him
there?
to mute. Go ahead, Nick. Oh, we can't hear him.
It looks like his mic isn't
Yep.
working.
Maybe, Nick, if you have some comments, maybe you could just put it in the chat for now. I don't see any other
Yeah.
hands raised. Kyle.
So I just wanted to go over just a couple slides on the Mass Bike annual meeting that was held on December 5th of this year. Just want to highlight a few things that they talked about. Some wins they had in legislative, enact to reduce traffic fatalities. Within that, vulnerable road users was defined. The 4-foot safe passing, truck safety devices, and better reporting of bike ped crashes. And there's also some commuter bicycle benefits, which passed in recent tax relief bill. They also discussed bicycle education, safe routes to school, multiple bike rodeos and bike safety presentations were held, and more than 1,300 students were reached. League certified instructor training that was hosted in Worcester. And then Bay State Bike Month was held in May. There were 190 plus events hosted in 70 plus municipalities. Massachusetts Bike Friendly Events calendar is now a permanent part of Mass Bike. Some pictures there from some of the events. And then as part of the vulnerable road users law that was passed, bike lights is now required. So they acquired some bicycle lights and they were handing them out for free. 3,700 sets of lights were distributed over 52 municipalities. And then at the meeting, they also had a legislative panel. Senator Will Brownsberger discussed the new vulnerable road users law. Rep. Tommy Vitolo talked about commuter bicycle benefits, and Representative Michelle Socolo shared about the newly revived Trails Caucus. That's just a few items. If you want the full recap, they have videos on their website. I provided the link. I'll send out this the slides after this meeting, so you guys have access to that. And so our next meetings for next year, we have them scheduled for March 20th, June 19th, and then September 18th. And then later on, we'll decide the date of the next December meeting. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to discuss? All right, I think that's good. It's a good informative meeting, good discussion. And I hope everyone has a good holiday coming up next week. And have a good new year, and we'll see you in 2024.
You guys take care.
Happy
All right,
holidays.
thank you.
you.
Have a good
you.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Have a good holiday.
Thank you all.
Thanks, you too.